Better?
Yeah,
Good.
I've seen a physical therapist, so
That will help,
good healing art.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What shall we do? We will open our bag. Yes. Goodies will come out. Bhashya book.
Goodies came this morning.
Huh?
Goodies came this morning.
Ah, yeah, they did. They just manifested on the doorstep somehow.
Somehow.
Yeah. I have an extra Bhashya book if anyone wants to follow.
We have it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think I forgot to bring one more. Where is that? Hmm? No, everything is here.
That sunrise this morning just took my breath away. It was peach and orange.
I missed it. Was it good?
Oh,
Ah,
gosh, yeah,
sunrise.
It started out magenta and purple, and then just went
Magenta and purple and then
and
orange.
then it went to orange and peach.
Ah.
and
Now
yellow.
that's what we want inside. The Jnanodaya of knowledge. We have Suryodaya. Suryodaya means the sunrise which you saw outside. And that is seen as a parallel to what is happening inside. And what is happening inside is also an udaya, a rising of what? Jnanam, knowledge, self-knowledge. Yeah, so you can admire all the colors within as well. Yeah, that's the whole parallel. There are lots of wonderful parallels. Shall we begin? Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Bhadram Karnebhih Shriniyamadevah Bhadram Pashyemakshabhiryajatraah Sthirairangai Stushtvagam Sastanubhih Vyashema Devahitam Yadayuh Swasti na Indro Vruddhashravah Swasti na Pusha Vishvavedah Swasti nastarksho Arishtanemihi Swasti no Brahaspatir Dadhatu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So, we saw last time, what did we see? We saw that, even though, yadyapi, grihasteshu, among the grihastas, there is a parampara of knowledge, as is evidenced not just by this Upanishad, but you can cite so many other Upanishads. I gave the example last time. Shvetaketu gaining knowledge from who? He did not have to go very far. He did not have to go, where is my Guru? It was right there in the form of his own father. And then, Bhrigu went to Varuna. Who is Varuna? His own father. That's why Bhrigu is called Varuni. This is, pratyaya. Everything in Sanskrit is precise. Like Dasharathi, same pratyaya, ing. And so you make the, Varunasya apatyam, Varuni. You can make one word instead of saying son of Varuna. We have used up 3 words. All you say is Varuni. That shows that he went to his father. And Varunam upasasara. He approached his father. And so like this, there is enough evidence in the Upanishads. And again we have Vyasa and Shuka. That also I talked to you last time. So even though there is enough evidence in the Upanishad, in all the Upanishads, in many of them, that the lineage does not have to be one of the Guru Shishya in the sense of the Guru being a monastic sitting somewhere in the forest. There are enough grihasthas who are enlightened, who are in fact, living a life of everyday life. They are living an everyday life, but at the same time they are not letting it touch them or be afflicted by them. The everydayness, the mundaneness of the things. And so therefore, this is something which is important to see, that for this knowledge there is no qualification in the sense that you have to wear orange before you take this knowledge up, and then even afterwards you have to live a life confined to the Himalayas. There is no such rule, there is no rule, but there is a sthitanyaya. There is a difference between a rule and an established precedent. Here it is called sthitanyaya, an established precedent. And what is this established precedent? That whether you wear orange outside or not, the heart has to be dressed in an orange dress, whether you are grihastha or a sannyasi. Doesn't matter. What is talked about is the inner disposition of vairagya and viveka. So that cannot be negated. And so the inner disposition is not everything. You can say inside my heart is filled with love for you, but outside I'm going to sue you for something you did that I don't like. But inside I'm free of prejudice. It's easy to make that split. In fact, it is that split that brings one to the knowledge. That inside everything feels like as though it is one, and I have, I seem like I want this knowledge, but outside nothing works. Inside everything is okay, or sometimes outside things are okay, inside it is not. So this particular gap between the outer and the inner dispositions is what frequently brings one to the teaching, because there is a split. And this is described nowhere else except in this very Upanishad. Where? Which verses? Yeah? No, later on it will come. Later on it will come. And it will be the 2 birds. Don't forget. 2 birds. And what are these 2 birds? The Jiva bird and the Ishwarik bird, both subsisting in the same heart. Sometimes I behave like Ishvara on a good day. The rest of the time I behave like what? Piva, a jiva full of peeves is piva. So this is what it is. So this is the whole thing. This particular inability to somehow unite this. I mean, sometimes they are so different. The same person who is very calm, composed and in a Mauna Vyakhya position. What is this Mauna Vyakhya position? Dakshinamurti like. Just happy, silent, let anybody do anything, I'm okay. The same person becomes a tyrant, becomes a dictator, becomes, like a volcano. Especially the volcano that has been dormant for a long time, you cannot take it for granted. The more dormant it is, what happens? The more the chance of an outburst, correct? And so therefore, these 2 aspects of the personality, the inner and the outer, is what one is trying to unite through this knowledge. And so sannyasa is a wonderful way of life so that the inner and the outer are bridged. So you cannot deny the use of that just because we have a tradition of grihasthas who are engaged both in the learning and the teaching of the knowledge. There is a familial tradition, and in fact that's how most of us learnt about Hinduism, you know. We never went to, what is it called, that Sunday thing that happens, Hindu Sunday school, Balavihar, we never went. You know, and nobody said now we are going to have Hindu catechism classes and you know, now you are going to learn about, today we are going to learn about Rudra, tomorrow we are going to learn about this one, the one in the middle, Vishnu. We did not approach like that at all. When the festival is performed, then you just help out at home, whether you like it or not, because some things have to be done. So everybody has a job. Somebody puts rangoli in front of the house, you wash and put rangoli in the front, and then somebody else, you know, strings the flowers for mala. Somebody else washes all the prayer vessels. All the siblings are given different tasks in a family. And just like the production of food and just like the cleaning up after the food, here also for the festival, everything is, you know, done. The elders will take the more difficult jobs and the simpler ones are passed on to the children. And of course the children, when they do these things, they learn why this is so. And sometimes the parents don't have time to explain, why is this so? Because I told you so. And sometimes they don't know, you know. So they will just say, this is how my parents did, so you just shut up and do this. And this is what they will tell. This is how we all studied, correct? And so this is a knowledge by osmosis that is given from, we cannot deny the familial, you know, contribution in this knowledge. Where the matter of this gaining this knowledge is concerned, we cannot deny the familial tradition, you know. If not this knowledge, the precursor to this knowledge, that is the way of life, is certainly gained from that kind of a, lifestyle. But at the same time, we cannot deny the established logic that to bridge this inner and outer discrepancy between what I seek to become, you know, we seek to become how? Personality-wise. By how? Discovering the person, Purusha. That person is Purusha. The personality comes and goes. The personality resolves into the person, and this resolution is what I am wanting. And so therefore the lifestyle of sannyasa, you know, enforces, as it were, quickens this resolution, quickens this bridging. And so that cannot be, you know, denied. Na badhitum utsahate, cannot be contradicted. That's sthitanyayam. Na badhitum, to contradict. Utsahate, will not tolerate this contradiction. This is what was explained last time, just recapping where we, you know, met. So now he goes on a different tangent. In fact, he is now concluding this very beautiful introduction. And so there are two concluding paragraphs. Let us look at that. एवं उक्त संबंध प्रयोजनायाः उपनिषदः अल्पाक्षरम् ग्रन्थविवरणम् आरभ्यते. Always catch hold of what? The verb. Arabhyate. You know, arabhyate means it is begun. It is going to be begun. It has been begun. It has begun. Causal and, you know, passive. So it has begun. What has begun? You know, grantham arabhyate. The object of arabhyate is grantham. This introduction, this grantha means that which has been put together by me here. He's not claiming authorship, he is assuming everybody will know. This now I am this brief introduction, alpaksharam, meaning I have not wasted a lot of time in this introduction. It is brief, very pithy, but it has taken us so many sessions to even come to the conclusion. So this very pithy introduction, this precise introduction is begun with a view to, Ukta Lakshanam means with a view to understanding what its brush strokes are. That this particular Upanishad with these particular characteristics, because each Upanishad has a certain flavor. And this Upanishad smells of sannyasa from the beginning to the end, which is why he had to say that you cannot contradict this, even though it begins slightly differently. It begins with the grihastha tradition, but still the flavor of it is sannyasa flavor. Like you have coffee with hazelnut flavor and coffee with
Chocolate raspberry.
mocha flavor. Raspberry, I don't know. Coffee and raspberry. Yabba. Anyway, so, but there are people, I suppose, who like. Anyhow, so with mocha flavor and whipped cream and this, every coffee has its own characteristics. Now, coffee has been made into an art form with all these cafes coming. Correct? So, this Upanishad also has its own flavor, and this has got citrus flavor. Why citrus? Orange. Yes, this has a decidedly citrus flavoring, meaning it is a sannyasa pradhanya Upanishad. Yeah, and that something that Adi Shankara does not want us to forget right at the outset. So when he says Ukta Lakshanam, that the Upanishad with these aforementioned qualities, aforementioned attributes, aforementioned, highlights. He doesn't want to forget the orange highlights, which are not just scattered throughout, but which in fact are the predominant coloration of this Upanishad. Is predominantly, vairagya pradhanya, meaning that the renunciation aspect, the letting go of everything that one thought belonged to oneself, the letting go of everything that one thought one was, is a precursor to gaining this knowledge. This is going to be talked about in detail later, he's going to say. But for now, he is just summing up Ukta Lakshanam and this kind of a Upanishad, with evam Ukta Lakshanam. Sometimes he says Ukta Sambandha Prayojanayaha Upanishadaha, all sixth case. And what is he saying? That of this Upanishad or for this Upanishad, Ukta Sambandha Prayojanatvam Asti, means this Upanishad has a particular, characteristic in the form of Sambandha and Prayojana. What is Sambandha? Connection. And this is a very technical term. This is not any Sambandha or the sixth case Sambandha. No. It's a technical term arising from what is called the Anubandha Chatushtayam. What is this Anubandha Chatushtayam? Something that you have on the side dish with every meal, correct? No. What is Anubandha Chatushtayam? We saw earlier. It's a fourfold way of understanding a particular, four categories of understanding the particular text. So what does that involve? Anubandha Chatushtayam? Huh?
What do we study?
Yeah. What is that called? Subject matter. Yeah. And what is that called in Sanskrit? Vishaya. Vishaya. And then? For whom it is. What is that called? Adhikari. Vishaya 1, Adhikari 2, and the other 2 he mentions. We don't have to break our heads because he's already mentioned the other 2. What is that? Prayojana and Sambandha. Prayojana means what do I gain from studying this? Sambandha means what is the connection between what is studied and what is gained. Correct? That is the thing. So, evam ukta sambandha prayojanayaha Upanishadaha means he wants to say that he has already discussed the sambandha and prayojana when everyone was sleeping. He He already discussed that. He doesn't want you to think that he has not discussed that, because he has already discussed that. So, where did he discuss that? Go back so that you know that he is true on his word. Let us not just take his words. Where does he say? Right in the second paragraph. He says that prayojanena tu vidyayaha sadhana sadhana lakshana sambandham. Both prayojana and sambandha he is discussing there. Uttaratra vakshati bidhidyate hritya granthi ityadina. You know, so he is talking about the prayojana. And he is also talking about the sambandha there, you know. Again and again he talks about that in the second paragraph itself. I have talked about it, he says. And what is the prayojana? Vidyate hridaya granthi. What is the sambandha? Without this knowledge, hridaya granthihi na vidyate. So the knowledge is the key to gaining that which is already gained. It is not some new gain which is talked about. It is the gain of yourself that is already gained. And how is it gained? It is your own nature. And how is it gained? Through this study. Because the study becomes important, and we have already seen this in great detail. The study becomes important, without which this ajnanam cannot be uncovered. So the gain of the knowledge is not a new gain, but the uncovering of that covering agent called avidya, which is ignorance, self-ignorance. So the self-ignorance is what is, you know, uncovered. And that self-knowledge is transmitted more as an uncovering rather than as a new knowledge that is being drilled into the brain. So therefore, he has already talked about the sambandha. The sambandha means what? Such and such a, you know, pratipadya pratipadaka sambandha. The Upanishad is the pratipadaka, and the subject matter, the vishaya, is the pratipadya, and studying the vishaya, the sambandha, you know, and knowing the sambandha, the prayojana, the effect of it or the use of it is fulfilled. But then, what about the adhikari? He is going to talk about the adhikari now. He has not talked about the adhikari. He has already talked about the vishaya, because the sambandha prayojanayaha upanishadaha, when he says upanishadaha, the vishaya is already taken care of. But adhikari he is going to talk about last. Why doesn't he follow the given order? You know, vishaya, adhikari, prayojana, sambandha. Why doesn't he follow the order? He knows the rules, correct? Yeah.
He doesn't want to scare people.
You could say that. You could say that if the adhikaritvam was put in the beginning, then nobody would come. You know, already, 7:30 in the morning. And that too starting tomorrow after time change. It's going to be, tomorrow time is changing. I will announce that. So it will be an hour earlier. And so, only the brave-hearted will come. Correct? Yeah. So, and then on top of that, if you give adhikaritvam in the beginning, even the all but the most faint of heart will run away. Because what all the adhikaritvam means what? The one who is going to benefit from the study. And who is going to benefit from the study? The person should have shama. What is that? Dhamma, uparati, titiksha, shraddha, samadhanam, this 6-pack one has to have, And to get the regular abdominal 6-pack also you have to press some irons, and here also you have to not have too many irons in the fire, and you have to have focus, you have to have, the ability to let go and not sweat the small stuff. Eventually you don't sweat the big stuff either, and then you have to let go of everything. You have to be so focused on your own growth that the entire jagat can fall down on your head, but you won't even need a band-aid. And then you have to be that much focus, that much love for clarity, that much desire for the knowledge. The fire of the desire has to be kept going. And it has to be unflagging, meaning not suddenly today I want to study Brahma Vidya, yes, I'll wake up at 4 o'clock and come to the 7 o'clock class, and then tomorrow what? Tomorrow it is like, oh, I don't feel like coming. This is what happens. Very frequently this is what happens. Everybody starts off with soda bottle enthusiasm. When you open one soda can, what happens? All, especially if you shake it up nicely. But why are you setting this up? No, because the jiva also is shaken up by samsara. I'm not setting it up. I'm just presenting as it is. So such a jiva comes to the knowledge with great gusto. And then what? The desire goes like a flat line. Yeah. And everything just peters out. That unflagging, commitment must be there. This is what makes one an adhikari. Not Ayaram, Gayaram. What is Ayaram, Gayaram? The one who comes and goes. The Rama who comes and goes. Here we are not talking of the Lord. Local Rama. And in between Shapad Rama, he's eating, in between. That is all. This is this munching Rama who is coming and going, whose main, focus is food, not the Upanishad. So this is not the kind of, so if he had discussed adhikaritvam in the beginning, perhaps people would have run away. So he is waiting to see who remains, and then he is saving his breath to just mention what he needs to mention at the very end. Also, he is a pro at this. You don't have to go Vishaya, Adhikari, Sambandha and Prayojana. That is for the beginners of the essay writing, Sanskrit essay writing. For the child you have to say, okay, you have to introduce the topic, and then you have to say the purpose, and then you have to do this, that. This is just a framework. He is a pro. He can start anywhere and weave everything together. He's like Pujya Swamiji. Pujya Swamiji doesn't have to go, okay, Shama, Dama, like that, You can start anywhere and bring it all together, and he's showing us his finesse. By breaking the order, he's showing that he's not a beginner of this essay writing thing. And he's just seeing in the Upanishad all these things, and he's showing it in a way that makes sense to him. He's weaving a beautiful thing, because the prayojana and the catches the person. Even the most deadened samsari, the most committed samsari. Who is the committed samsari? Samsari who is fit to be committed. That is the committed samsari. Anyhow, so even the most deadened, jaded, faded samsari, when you talk to the person about what happens when you study an Upanishad, especially this Upanishad is enough for gaining moksha. You don't need 108 Upanishads, you don't even need 10, you don't need 5, you just need this one Upanishad. And if you study this properly, you will not have sorrow. And even the most deadened samsari, who is under the covers, like given up on life, and slowly will peek out. Little bit, okay, you have my attention, what I have to do now, all right, here. Samsari playing peekaboo from under the covers, Yeah. And to that person, then ultimately you just give a few little qualifications. Don't overwhelm them, And in fact, this is my answer to the frequently asked questions. Why in Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan Krishna enlists those 20 qualifications in 13th chapter, well after the half, What is half of 18? 9. And why it took so long, I don't know. But anyhow, so, and 12 is almost, 13 is almost 2/3 the way in. He's talking of the qualifications. Why? Because otherwise people will be so amavanitvam, adambhitvam, ahimsa, okay, kshantihi, okay, wait, I have to write this down, aharjavam, Acharya Upasana, oh, I forgot that. Okay, and then, Shaucham, I think I should take a shower now. And then, Shaucham means cleanliness, okay, yeah. Don't think I'm suddenly having ideas. unconnected. Atma vinigraha, a certain kind of a say over myself. Indriyartheshu vairagyam, vairagya with regard to sense objects. So all these 20 qualifications are mentioned in chapter 13 because Bhagavan Krishna doesn't want Arjuna to run away. Already he is threatening to run away from the battle. To run away from the teaching would be a very bad thing. So these are saved. In fact, this is a very interesting, this is one of the paradoxes of this learning, is that what I need to learn, in order to learn, I also pick up from the learning itself. Sometimes after the learning is half complete. This is an interesting paradox. And this is what makes the Vedanta really shine, because Vedanta is a series of paradoxes. What you are is revealed to you by making it appear that you are not that. And then what you are is revealed to you through a series of paradoxes. That first of all, there is no problem. And if there is no problem, there should be no solution, correct? Yeah, the two go together. No problem begets no solution. And the no problem is for the non-problem, and the non-solution to the non-problem is given to the non-separate person from whom, from Brahman, who is understanding Brahman as a separate being, who is understanding this non-separation by having this artificial divide between the Shastra and the Guru, between the Shastra and the Shishya, between Guru and the Shishya, between Ishvara and Jiva. So all this, in and through this non-separateness, this separation is as though kept in view and as though negated. It's very interesting. So this is also one of the paradoxes, that the qualifications are sometimes given at the end, because it is not understood in the beginning. Because what I want is so much there clamoring in the head, and if that should be given, and then the person is told, in order to really gain this end, you have to fill yourself with these qualities. You have to equip yourself with a few things in order to gain this knowledge. And so then when that person is told that, then there is, a better ability to grasp. The qualifications stick. Otherwise it's a Teflon samsari brain, non-stick brain, So we have to make it stay. And then what? Then there is one more thing. There is one more reason why this is the qualifications he has saved at the end. Because that which is studied at the end is remembered the most. So if, Adi Shankara is almost saying, without saying this, he is implying between the lines that if there is one thing I want you to come away with this introduction to this Upanishad, it is what is needed to study this. That is what I want you to come away with. And he does this in every Upanishad, in the Upodghata Bhashya. Upodghata means what? Introductory. Yes, very good. In the introductory Bhashya, in every Upanishad he does that. Like what he wants you to come away in the Kathopanishad commentary is the definition of the word Upanishad itself. That's how he concludes. Brahma damayati, all these things, avasadayati, everything. Here he wants you to come away with what is it that is needed to really make this knowledge your own. What is the clinching factor, the feature? The clinching feature is not the existence of the Upanishad, no matter how good it may be. It's not the existence of the Guru. It's not the existence of anything except you as a Shishya. And what is the Shishya? Shiksha Yogya Shishya. We have 3 words for student in Sanskrit. One is Vidyarthi. Vidyarthi means what? The Vidya, the one who seeks Vidya. It could be any Vidya, from cooking Vidya, dancing Vidya to, so many Vidyas, so little time, correct? It could be Paravidya, Aparavidya, it doesn't matter. Vidyarthi, it's vague. Seeking knowledge. What knowledge of what? When? How? That is not talked about in the definition of this Vidyarthi. Then we have another word, Ante Vasin or Ante Vasini. Ante Vasin means the best translated as inmate. Inmate of what? The zenitentiary. Yeah. We have penitentiary where penance is done, okay? And then we have zenitentiary. What is zenitentiary? Where the zen-like attitude is gained, ashram. So you are the inmate. Inmate means what? You have to take permission in writing to leave the gates of the ashram. Yeah. You have to take the acharya's permission. And you cannot suddenly just take off because I'm sick of it and I won't attend class for a few weeks. Cannot. What will happen if you do that? You may not be allowed back in, So you have to take permission, you have to, take permission for everything. And except breathing and eating and studying, those basic things are allowed, but other things you have to take permission. And so this is what is called an Antevasin. An Antevasin, may be just there by default. Meaning suddenly one finds oneself becoming an inmate. Why? Because nothing else has worked. Let me become an inmate. Correct? Or sometimes the parents send the child to Gurukula and the kicking and screaming, and the child doesn't want to go. The child is an inmate. So Antevasin doesn't mean the one who is Shiksha Yogya. The third definition, Shishya. Shishya means the one who is worthy of gaining this knowledge, worthy of being taught. That is why Arjuna declares to Krishna, Shishyasteham. He doesn't say, I am your Antevasin. He doesn't say, I am a Vidyarthi. No. I am your Shishya. Meaning what? I have sought you out as a teacher. This is very interesting and very important. Arjuna doesn't sit, let the teachers choose me. This is not a high school prom, I have told you. Let somebody choose me and tell me, will you please go to the prom and you are special to me. This is not high school prom. Yeah, this is where you are sick of the cha-cha-cha of life. What is cha-cha-cha? Cha-cha-cha, and this, and one more. Sanskrit cha-cha-cha. You are sick of the life, and here you have to seek the solution. You have to just sort of garner up all the previous good karma that you have done, the previous punya, and you have to seek out the teacher. And here, what kind of teacher to seek out? This Upanishad only will teach. And you have to, the onus is on you. And so the Shishyatvam is not the job of the Guru. People say, okay, let me be molded into the Shishya. The Guru doesn't have either the desire or the, intent of trying to mold someone into a Shishya. That has to come from you. That has to come from the seeker of the knowledge. And the knowledge first becomes so dear. See, which is why the Vishaya, the Sambandha and the Prayojana were given first. The Prayojana is given first. What happens as a gain of this? So the good things are given first, so that in view of that which annihilates samsara, which annihilates sorrow and fear, I mold myself in order to become worthy of this knowledge. And that is Shishya. It is not someone who is obedient to the Guru. That's not the point. The point is you become worthy not of the Guru, of this knowledge. You become worthy, make yourself worthy of being taught by making this knowledge the foremost thing in your life, by making a clearing in terms of pursuits, of other pursuits, so that you can pursue this knowledge, and making an inner clearing in the form of Chitta Shuddhi. Chitta Shuddhi is what? All this Ragadvesha jungle is pruned inside. Otherwise the Ragadvesha jungle and the jiva like a Tarzan will swing from nerve to nerve, and not let you study. Yes, Tarzan means Prakrita Buddhi, wild jiva inside. So therefore all these adventitious roots of desire have to be cut. That is why Dakshinamurti Adi Guru sits in meditation. How? Sits in meditation when? Under the banyan tree. But banyan tree represents samsara. The roots go down, the roots are actually in the form of leaves, and then they go down and then take root. So the desire comes in the mind and then takes root in the heart and then gives rise to another continuation. So the desires are endless, and he sits at the root of this banyan tree to uproot all the desires. This is what it is. So the Shishya, the onus is on the person who is desirous of this knowledge, has to make themselves worthy. The Guru is not going to monitor your Shishyatvam. The Guru has no desire. The Guru is not some kind of a, what is that? Ward, in the whole thing we have, what is that? In the dormitories, we have somebody who's there in the college dormitories, whatever it's called, some resident person who gives the star to the best dormer. In colleges they have this, Usually sometimes who's a graduate student is put there, somebody who's a little older and studying, PhD. They also need some, place to stay, they need a job. So they are given this, in charge of one dorm. And then they have to give these stars to the people, and they have to put some people on a list, not a very desirable list, so that, So this is not, the Guru is not doing, oh, you are the best Shishya, you better watch out, I am watching you. No. This is, the onus is totally on the person who is desiring of the knowledge. So the Guru does not even see, who comes, who goes, why they are not here. Maybe out of compassion the person may ask, is the person sick or what happened? Sometimes, that is a different thing. But the Guru is only giving the knowledge. Like the sun shines. The sun does not see who is making hay. Correct? Yeah. Even though we have an expression. What is the expression?
Make hay while the sun
So the sun is not seeing, oh, you are a bad man, you are not bad boy, you are not using my light and making hay. It doesn't matter. So the Shishyatvam, the onus is on the person, and to say that he says this, he says that I have already talked about Prayojana and Sambandha, and by Upalakshana, Vishaya as well, because the word Upanishad is here. And he says Alpaksharam Grantham, this small little offering, resident advisor, that's the correct one, R.A., correct, yes, so that is the one. So the Guru is not a resident or a non-resident advisor. And so here Upanishadaha Alpaksharam Grantham, this brief introduction, Vivaranam, Grantha Vivaranam, this Vyakhya means Vivaranam means Vyakhya. What is Vivaranam and Vyakhya? This introduction, this little bit of a introduction is begun, and now he says for whom, has been begun. Ye imam Brahma Vidyam Upayanti Atma Bhavena. Let us stop there, because this itself is a mouthful. Okay, so this is for whom? This is for them. Ye, for those. Ye means for whom? Whom? For whom? Ye imam Brahma Vidyam Upayanti, for those who Upayanti, Upa Samipe Yanti Gachanti, those who approach, those who are not afraid to approach this knowledge. Meaning what? The Upanishad is not going to hand out leaflets at the street corner. Neither is the Guru, Even though we send out things to people, but it is only confined to people on our mailing list, not to other people. We are not handing out leaflets saying, come one, come all to the Upanishad ball. No, we are not doing that. That is what Jehovah's Witness. They come and knock on the door. They come and and especially in the Indians, they will always invite everyone and give them cup of tea. And the Jehovah's Witness will never leave. They will keep talking, even though nobody is there to listen. They will keep on talking. Yeah. So we are not trying to convert anybody, and neither can we convert anybody. Why? Because you cannot be converted to yourself. The knowledge is about seeking yourself. The knowledge is about gaining yourself. So really there is nothing to convert, and we cannot revert you to ajnanam because you are already in ajnanam. So there is no reversion, there is no conversion, there is no progress, there is no regress. So really speaking, this is an inside job. And the ones who recognize that it's an inside job, that my identity has been stolen away by ajnanam, I am the one who is suffering from identity theft. Yeah, that ajnanam has stolen away my identity. In fact, all the other identities I have assumed are not the correct identity. How tall I am, how heavy I am, how light I am, what is the color of my skin, what is the color of my hair, what do I do, am I a man or a woman? All these are, they are not my true identity. They are just a miasma of various, house in the clouds, as they say, various apparitions. It is just an apparent identity. It is not my real identity. What do I do? How many sisters? How many brothers? Who is my mother? Who is my father? Who is my, who is my rishi? What is my gotra? Where do I go from now on? All these are wrong, identities. They are just placeholders for that upon which everything is based. Yes. So those are not the identities. Those are just, the more I focus on those identities, the other one remains hidden. The truth of all that, all these identities have an adhishthana, means they are based on something which is none of them, which upholds all of them, but which is none of them. And that is me. And that Brahman, which is, bigger than the biggest, smaller than the smallest, that which is the truth of everything, that Brahman I alone am, that is called Brahma Vidya. That is what it is. Ye imam Brahma Vidyam. So this Vidya, not Vidya of Brahman, Vidya which is non-separate from Brahman. Yes. Because even though it is Shashti Tatpurusha, what is Shashti Tatpurusha? Means, the genitive compound, knowledge of Brahman. It's like saying head of Rahu. Rahoho Shiravat. What is Rahu? A planet that is a shadow planet that is all head. Correct? So if you say head of Rahu, or even locally take head of lettuce, does lettuce have a tail? Let us not go there. Basically. So this is, head of lettuce means what? Head of cauliflower. Cauliflower is all head. Rahu is all head. So head of Rahu, Aupachariki Shashti. Aupachariki Shashti means what? Upacharartham eva. This is just for the formal sake of the the sixth case compound, the genitive compound. It really doesn't have any basis. So here, Brahma Vidya, it is not Brahmana Vidya, Brahmano Vidya. No, it is just, it's almost like a Karma Dharaya. It is almost like a compound that is describing what it is. It's a descriptive compound. Yeah, Brahma Eva Vidya, really. Brahman alone is the knowledge, is non-separate from the knowledge. And what is this Brahman? From Brih. Brih means limitlessly big. And so who is being given this knowledge? The one who thought I was infinitesimally small is being given this knowledge that you are infinitely big, you are timeless. The time-bound jiva is being told you are timeless. The one who thought I am the smaller than the smallest is shown, no, you are not the smallness that you think you are. Oh, but I feel, sometimes I feel I am not worth it. That is just a feeling. In fact, it's a peeling. An unappealing peeling. Yeah, so it is in fact peeling as we speak. It is peeling away like dead skin. The skin that is no longer serviced by the blood vessels, what happens? It peels away. So here also, the knowledge, fortifies the person. And the dead cells of the personality just peel away. This is what it is. Because I have maintained this personality thinking it is the be all and end all of who I am. In fact, people take a lot of pride in cultivating the garden of ragadveshas. But actually it is like cultivating very carefully all the weeds that you can find. Cultivating dandelions. Dandelions need to be cultivated? Do they? Say no, so we can go on. So, dandelions need not be cultivated, correct? Why? Because Bhagavan given, they have the way, foo, even if you don't say foo, they go and they populate the entire Jagat. So if some, blessed soul says, I am going to cultivate the dandelion, I am going to have a dandelion garden. Dandelion, So I am going to have a dandelion garden and I am going to make sure that the seeds are propagated. I am going to water it. I am going to put that, what is that? Miracle something. Miracle Grow. I am going to put. In Eugene, nobody even knows Miracle Grow because
The dandelion steeped in greens.
And so this is the thing. In Eugene, they will only put compost from their own banana peel. They will make the compost. Let it take 10 years. Doesn't matter. They have the time. So they will recycle the banana peel and the recycled banana peel and all the other things. Is put, if they have not eaten the banana peel themselves. That is also possible because all the Eugene people need to know is one article that the banana peel has more nutrients than the banana itself. So you know what, the banana peel will be ingested, banana will be in the compost. And that's why the raccoons get very fat in this town. They go from compost to compost. Every day is bhandara for them. They feed. Every night they feed. And they get extremely fat. I met one, in the back gate which I used to go for walk. It was sitting slightly bigger than me, And it looked at me, I looked at it. I said, are you going to go? It said no, without saying no. It showed that it is here to stay. I said, okay, remain, doesn't matter. Namaha, I said, and went. It was not in the slightest bit scared. I told you, it is slightly bigger than me. Sat there looking very amused, So like this, the raccoons get really, and whatever is left over by the raccoons goes into feed the dandelion garden. Correct? So if one jiva were to say, I am making a beautiful dandelion garden, you will think that this person is crazy. Does this even need to be cultivated? That which grows on its own, you don't have to cultivate. In fact, that which grows on its own takes over everything else. Like bamboo. Nobody has bamboo garden, If you plant one bamboo by mistake, your neighbors will hate you. That is what it is. Because bamboo doesn't take permission, and bamboo doesn't have any sense of boundaries. And it just scares everyone. That's why the last word of bamboo is boo. It just scares, it just hovers and scares everyone. And so therefore, you don't grow such things. You don't cultivate things like this that grow on their own. You don't have to cultivate. And the inner dandelions are the ragadveshas that propagate on their own. Yes. that permeate and take over the entire antahkarana, the entire chittam, the entire inner, instrument, which is the mind, which is the heart, which has to be free, kept free for this knowledge, are occupied by ragadveshas. This is what it is. So like the dandelion doesn't need to be, cultivated and pruned and pruning season and dormant season. You don't have to worry for the dandelion. And you don't have to say, "Ayyo, I forgot to water it today." It doesn't need to be watered. So ragadveshas are like that, and they have a way of taking hold. They have a way of seeding and reseeding themselves constantly. But in the West is bhoga bhumi. Yes, full of bhoga. And bhumi means the land of bhoga is the Western, and India is also becoming like that, really. And so here, especially, there is an overt focus on cultivating the ragadveshas. A 2-year-old is asked, "Honey, what are you going to eat for breakfast?" My mother never asked me that. Breakfast was what was for breakfast. If I didn't like it, I would definitely love lunch, because by that time I would be so hungry that whatever was given I would take. And if the child doesn't like lunch, definitely it will eat dinner. That's all it was. And so the whole culture in especially Asian countries, the whole culture is on the reduction of ragadveshas. A certain modesty is practiced, an economy, and before you consume, you make sure everybody else has, even if you don't have. All these things are taught as very important values. And here it's the opposite. So the child that doesn't even know how to talk is asked, "What are you going to wear?" How do I know all this? Because I was one time babysitting one child. This is what happened. I was babysitting this child, and then, when I first came from India, and then I was babysitting this 1.5-year-old, very cute. And then the mother said after 1 week that she really loves you, but she says that you don't ask her what to wear and what to eat. That is what the child made a complaint about me to the mother, saying that you ask, what I should wear, what I should do. She doesn't ask, she just makes whatever she wants and gives me for breakfast. That is how I had my education. And this was something which was a very big eye-opener, that this is the land of choice, this is the land where you come to cultivate ragadveshas. Yeah. And the ragadveshas are cultivated and protected as a form of main identity. And this is what you enter on your Facebook preferences. This is what you enter. This is who I am. This is what I am. These are my desires. These are the things I like. And then you beg, "Please like me," on Facebook. Yeah. I told you that story, the 13-year-old who came and said, "Can you please like me on Facebook?" I said, "I can like you on your face. Why I have to go on Facebook?" "No, but I want you to like me on Facebook." This is the thing. This is what it is. The more you cultivate ragadveshas, first you feel you're in charge, and then you're reduced to a beggar. Yeah. You want people to like you, people to love you, and you want everything about all these ragadveshas make a beggar, because they have constantly to be satisfied. Like the dandelion seeds, they have taken root, sometimes in things that belong to other people, in other people's yards. You cannot have it. It's either illegal or unethical or immoral. Or as Pujya Swamiji says, terribly fattening. So you cannot have it. You cannot have it, but still you want it. You are reduced to a helpless individual. You are reduced to a beggar. And if this is your identity, God help, really. Nothing else can help. So therefore, the discovery of the student within requires a weeding out of these dandelion garden. You don't have to, in fact, cultivate it. You have to decultivate it. You have to let that land fallow, so that the Upanishad can put all the nutrients, and so that the garden that you grow in the form of growing clarity, inch by inch, row by row. You grow this garden of what? Fearlessness, limitlessness, a certain tranquility, a certain non-involvement in all other things and people, a certain minding of your own business, freedom from fear. This is what is the natural garden that will grow. If you stop cultivating the weeds, this is what it is. So as long as the weeds are cultivated, nobody will even sniff Brahma Vidya. That's right. Because the weeds take so much time. Before you know it, it has gone and reseeded itself. It has morphed into one more desire, one more desire, one more desire, one more desire. And then the person who says, I am sick of trying to fulfill these desires. Who says that? The one who becomes incapable of fulfilling them. Or one who understands, gets some viveka, that if I fulfill one, it is morphing into another. And anybody who's tried to fulfill even a simple desire knows how difficult it is. Everything has to come together. Prarabdha has to oblige. Karma has to oblige. And then, the object of desire should be within range, should not be illegal, should be able to be gained through dharmic means. Then I deploy the dharmic means. And then what happens? The object of desire goes to the next person. Always I get the consolation prize. Somebody else is getting the first prize. This is what the situation is. So therefore, this is, as long as I am caught up in the cultivation of desires, Brahma Vidya is not going to appeal to me. This much I have to understand. That I have to keep in mind, that other things have to take a back seat. This desirer, the desirer has to be interrogated, not the objects of desire. The subject has to be interrogated. What is wrong with me that I am subject to so many desires? That is the interrogation of the subject, which is what Brahma Vidya is all about. It's about inquiring into the nature of the desirer, and it is about letting go of the identity that I am a desiring, wanting person in the wake of the understanding that I have everything that I seek. As what? As myself. Brahmana samashnute. Sarman kaman samashnute. All desires resolve in the wake of this teaching that I am that which is dear to me is myself alone. Which myself? Not the 5 foot so many inches and so many pounds myself, not the body me, the mind me, the karta me, bhokta me, no. Not the panchakosha endowed me, but the one who is the inhabiting all the panchakoshas without being afraid or affected by them, without being afflicted by them. That I is not a seeker. So the seeker I, who is sick of seeking, whose truth is revealed as a non-seeker, that is the Upanishad. And that is what is called here Brahma Vidya. Not knowledge of Brahman, knowledge as Brahman. Brahmavid, as this Upanishad is going to say later, Brahmaiva Bhavati. The knower of Brahman is indeed Brahman alone. And so, therefore, ye janaha we have to supply, ye janaha, those, ye sajjanaha, those good people means what? Given to dharma, striving hard in their own ways to be dharmic, to make ends meet, to live their lives. They don't know any better, but somehow they have come to understand that this road of desire fulfillment is fraught with many blocks in the form of limitations, in the form of sorrow, in the form of fear. This road of desire fulfillment is a rocky road, and I do not mean the ice cream flavor. Okay? Yeah. This road of desire fulfillment is a very, it's like standing on a precipice. Always I feel on the edge, teetering, tottering, into samsara. This is not the road I want to follow. That viveka has to come. And only then they can approach the Upanishad. Not that the Guru, neither the Guru nor the Upanishad approaches them. They approach the Upanishad. Ye janaha, upayanti. Upayanti means closely. They are not afraid of coming close. Upa, the upasarga, upa means near. Yeah, upasarga means prefix. The prefix upa means near, as in Upanishad. And that's why he uses the word upa, because we are talking of Upanishad. So we don't want the seeker within to be someone who has a dalliance with this knowledge. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, change the partner now, because this is some kind of a waltz. You get sick of that person, okay, you leave. And sometimes the ballroom dancing is like that. You should not be with one partner for too long. You do cha 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 and go and make them sit down and pick up a new one. Cha 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 cha. And for such a person whose life is full of and this and this and this cha 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 cha, Upanishad will not speak. Will not speak. Upanishad wants to be your only partner. Yeah. Yamaivesha vrinute tena labhyaha. In another Upanishad. The one who chooses it completely, only to such a person does the Upanishad reveal herself totally, fully, without keeping anything back. So, here also, the Upanishad wants you to choose her completely. She has to be an all-consuming pursuit. And until that happens, this is not called Upayanti. This is just Yanti. Only simple Yanti. Yanti and then what? Tata bye-bye. Agachanti, gachanti eva. Come and go. This going and coming is the problem. The problem is this. It is this nischalata with regard to commitment is often not there. So why do people go and come? People go and come for a variety of reasons. And what are they? We will see after we come back. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Take a 15-minute break and come back. Stop. Yeah, so 15-minute break we will take.